I'm Tyler with 3dbuzz.com, and in video 6 I'll be giving a few tips for character proportions. Now there's a lot of exact, precise, and generally known ways of getting perfect character proportions. I'm not really an expert in that, so I'm just going to provide you a few quick general tips that I use. I draw one line down the middle and cut it in half. That'll be the waist, and then I kind of gauge on the head size. The heads you generally want about 7 or 8 tall for the total length of the figure, so you can kind of just guess that out. So you had to add a little bit of mine, and then I draw a line underneath that for the shoulders, and that's generally 2 heads wide. And then I bring the neck down and I converge 2 lines on the shoulder to make an inverted triangle going down to the waist. And then for the female, I'll make the waist a little bit wider and do, more or less like a triangle shape kind of coming down on the outside of that. And then draw some lines to suggest where the legs will be. This will be this will show you more or less realistic kind of proportions. They wouldn't apply to something stylized at all. But you can kind of push and pull shapes from there when you have that figured out. And they have a lot of these rules and diagrams even anywhere on the internet, so if you want to do further reading on it, just Google human anatomy proportions and you'll get probably a lot better information than what I'm providing here. But when I draw arms, I do little hooks, little C hooks, in terms of 3, kind of like little lightning bolts, and that kind of helps me gauge where to put the first shoulder muscles, the upper arms where the biceps are, and then the forearms. And I'll do the same thing with the legs. Then I kind of just fill in the blanks. See, I wanted this to be a little bit more stylized, so I added longer legs. But the hands, look down on your hands. They fall below the waist, kind of just below the pelvic region. And the knees will be halfway from the waist to where the feet are. Now for drawing the breasts usually lie, in terms of length, about 2 head lengths down. And then I draw a triangle shape, an equilateral triangle, from the pit of the neck, and that kind of shows where the nipples will be, if that applies to your character. And of course underneath those I just draw a slight arch to represent where the rib cage will end. And of course, so halfway between the shoulders and the pelvic region, the halfway point would be where kind of like the navel of the belly button would be. And underneath that would lie the iliac crest, kind of where the hips begin. But the belly button would align about where the elbows are. See, I still have the head. I guess this woman would be working out. You can tell I draw mostly male characters because she's got really beefy shoulders and kind of like a smaller head. So I think I do an edit where I give it a little bit of style and I fix some of that. But this is kind of if I'm just doodling out proportions, and I'm not going to even use this for, I think, the mannequin or anything. I just wanted to show you a few quick tips to help make your character look not as goofy if they do. Though my character here looks pretty goofy, so who am I to talk? But yeah, just measure out you can gauge the head in terms of that. And this is how I kind of draw the legs, using that 3-stage, 1, 2, and then 3 for the lightning bolts. And then fill in the rest, and that kind of gives a nice natural shape for the legs. And for the legs, I just kind of do a triangle for the feet anyway, like that, and then slightly offset it like that, and this is where you can kind of draw where the ankles go. The outside one is slightly lower, and the inside one is a little bit raised. That'll kind of just give you a good general mannequin to work off of if you want to draw some armor or clothing above the character. So I duplicate this, and now I'm going to I'm going to try to give it a little more style and character. So I'm going to make it shorter because I don't want this girl to be that tall. Go over with like a blue pen or marker. You can kind of like whatever you want to use to signify or to show the edits you're making. This is all kind of rough. I'm not doing anything precise or technical. Just kind of using that initial pass as some groundwork. And this is a whole different subject than posing too. I kind of touch upon that a little later, but it's important at least to have a general knowledge of how the proportions of your character will work. So right here I got the arms a little bit too long, at least that left arm, but I'll have to make the legs longer as well. If you do gonna make something exaggerated or longer, you have to at least make something else that way, otherwise it'll look totally off. Kind of like what mine does right now. The legs do need to be longer on this one, but I am making the head larger as well. Kind of give it a little more stylized look. And yeah, this is kind of like the general skeleton I'll kind of use to block out my character designs for the next stage. It doesn't look totally bad. It's not perfect though by any means, but it'll get the job done. Yeah, if you have trouble drawing heads like I do, I just start with the circle and then draw like a little chin line, connect to the neck like that. That should work. So let's get on to the next phase.